This will likely be one of my most popular videos. You're here to see what super shoe performs best. I'm even excited about the results. I got more excited about the results when I decided to include a non-super shoe. That's probably going to make things super interesting. But let's stop messing about. Let's get stuck in. All right, you guys, so a little bit of fun today. Still in that marathon training towards Copenhagen. We're fortunate to live in an era now that, you know, shoes are absolutely ridiculous. They're incredible. They feel good. But I think everybody would like to know, you know, maybe what shoe comes out the fastest. So the session today is 4 times 2 laps of the park, which works out almost sort of 2 mile or just over 2 mile. And I'm going to compare what would probably be, you know, arguably the 3 fastest shoes on the market right now. And I thought for a little bit of fun, if you're lucky and you hang around, you'll see what I run without wearing the super shoes. And that'll just be in my sort of warm-up trainer, the on shoe that I wear. You've seen it in the warm-up. I've worn it before for steady runs. And we'll sort of see what the difference is between the super shoes and the non-super shoe. And I don't know if it's going to make me look good or not great that my personal best is in super shoes. But let's get into the video. I've finished my warm-up. We're going to do some drills now, and then we'll get stuck into some reps. All right, so the goal today, you know, testing those different shoes. The way I sort of see that coming together, I was always going to do 4 times 2 laps. I likely probably would have done it in the Asics Metaspeed Sky, I guess it's called. I like that because it doesn't feel super sort of like bouncy. It feels bouncy compared to probably what I have on my feet right now, and I'm about to do rep 1 in. But it feels like a sort of nice training shoe, but that doesn't mean that it's not going to be the fastest shoe for today. It might well be. So I was going to do 4 times 2 laps anyway. I'm going to do it based on mostly sort of effort, but actually use the Stride foot pod, which tells you power. And that's how we'll make sure it's sort of a fair comparison across the board. So if I keep power, you know, let's say around like 370, for example, then I have to, you know, so I'll do the first rep. What I mean, where I'm going with that is I'll do the first rep. If it comes out at like 370 power, well then of course when I put on the Meta, when I put on the Alphafly, I'm going to put on the Adios 4, I have to keep the power the same, and that's our sort of fair test. So we're going to use the Stride foot pod. That keeps everything really fair. I'm not really going to pay attention to speed, because if I look at speed, I might speed up, that sort of thing. So we'll do it all based on the foot pod. I think that's the fairest thing to do. But I'm going to finish off a couple of strides here and then do probably what will be the slowest rep of the whole session in the non-super shoe, which is just a pair of ons. And yeah, fingers crossed it goes well and I'm not too much slower than I will be in the super shoes, but we'll find out. By the way, fully supporting myself going into this year. You can like, subscribe, completely free. I'd really appreciate that. You can also go to 262clo.com. Is it 230 reviews, I think now? We're averaging 4.93 stars. The products speak for themselves. Absolute game changer is what pops up quite often. I think it's a no-brainer. Having pockets in some way, shape or form when you're out there running becomes super useful lately. So some really great products. You can check that out, or just like, subscribe, or comment below. Okay, so, you know, let's get into it. Let's go over some of the sort of more boring bits first. I'm going to go through each rep as it sort of played out. You know, that'll be all the reps. You know, I will come back to paces and sort of times, but we're going to look at like, how did it feel, that sort of thing. I really wanted to use the Stride foot pod to be that measure of, you know, fairness, I suppose you could say. But actually, I sort of quickly realized within the first sort of 2 or 3 reps that I would imagine one of the advantages to some of these shoes, different technology, all the rest of it, some of the advantage might be that one shoe lets you run at a higher power at the same effort. And so suddenly effort, keeping an eye on heart rate, that became almost the fairest test. I could do another test where I literally sit strict at the sort of power. But then the danger is that you're at a far easier effort. Yes, you're at the same power, but the effort is far easier and maybe you could have gone quicker. That's sort of what I mean by that. So the way I sort of did it was I just set off and I got into the rhythm in the first rep. I was wearing the On Cloud Monster. Didn't feel great at all. I didn't love that. I wasn't actually excited about the video. Of course I was excited to do the video. I thought it was going to be a really fun video. I honestly thought it would get lots of views, but I definitely got excited when I decided to do a rep in the Cloud Monster. Not excited and more like, I haven't done a rep in training without super shoes in I don't know how long. I've done long runs, I've done steady runs, but an actual rep at the start of a session, yeah, it's been a while. So there was a bit of nerves around like, how's that going to go? I have no idea what the pace is going to be. And that actually made it really interesting. Then I sort of transitioned into the first shoe I wore was Alphafly. And that obviously felt lovely because I had just been wearing, the On Cloud Monster. And so it was really nice to sort of move into just a super shoe. I think we're so lucky to have that sort of nowadays. I like the Alphafly 3. I definitely think it's fast. I've complained about the noise before. And my only issue with the Alphafly 3 would be that I don't know, maybe you can comment below, maybe you can tell me this, you guys will honestly know more than I do, but I have the feeling that around about sort of mile 16 to 22, I almost feel like it's too squishy. I almost feel like I would start to feel like I'm sinking into the ground, and it would be so important that you do your gym work because that's when you'd need your legs to still be able to pull you out of the ground. And actually, I think when your legs start to get tired and you start to get a little bit weaker in the later stages of a race, you almost depend on a bit of firmness under your feet and not this sinking feeling. I've never raced in them, I've never done a marathon in them, so I can't know that for sure, but that's roughly what I would predict might happen. So then I moved into the Adios Pro 4. Truth be told, I honestly thought this would be the fastest shoe of the day. I had tested it before, I did treadmill reps, and I'm now about to, kind of give it away that it didn't end up being the fastest shoe of the day. I have a feeling that's where I'm going with this. I have a feeling what happens with the Adidas shoe is it loses its ability quickly. I've now wore it for probably about a month. I did a 5K race in it. I've done some longer reps in it, but I haven't done that much running in it. And some of the feedback that the Stride Foot Pod, for example, would give you, and this is not a sponsored video, but some of the feedback would be like leg spring stiffness, which is, a really useful tool. That's what originally made me think that Adios Pro 4 was the best of the bunch because it was given really good scores for the leg spring stiffness. But today it didn't. It actually gave probably the lowest score today of that sort of leg spring stiffness. And so I'm thinking that once you wear it for 30 mile, 40, 50 mile, it becomes not as good as it was in the first run out. I don't work for any of these companies. They didn't send me any of these products. I'm just telling you where it's at. I think the leg spring stiffness came in at like 14.8 maybe. And when I first got it, it was coming in at 16.5, 17, which was higher numbers than I'd ever sort of seen before. But I think already the technology in it might be starting to get a little bit tired. Then I moved on to the Asics shoe. And this is where it gets really interesting because I didn't expect Asics to do as well as it did. And my face is now going to give everything away. But it's also what made it almost a fair test because I told you that I went by effort, I sort of went by feel. And I actually started to get a little bit tired in the third rep, which was the Adidas shoe. And I remember thinking like, I wonder should I just do one lap in the Asics shoe and I did do 2 laps. And then I remember thinking the pressure's kind of off because of all the shoes I wanted to come out on top, it was probably Adidas because it had felt so good. And then I was going to race the 5K in that. And so I almost felt like the hard work was done and I was just going to do the final rep in the sort of Asics shoe roughly at the same effort. And, I just assumed it would have came in, where it came in. And needless to say, it came in the fastest. And like, I'm smiling right now because it shocked me, right? And I know everyone said in my Instagram a while back that was going to be the quickest. But here's why I've done the results in this sort of way. And then I can get into the specifics. I have a feeling that Adidas declined quickly, their technology, okay? But I think Asics got better with time. And if you've had similar experience, please do comment below. I'm genuinely not just saying that because it will help the video, even though it will. I would be really curious to know if when you give it a bit more time, did it improve? Some of these shoes need you to sort of almost break them in and then they respond that little bit better. But have you sort of had similar? But now we'll get into some of the sort of facts and figures of the actual paces and then what I ran in the non-super shoes. Okay, so, facts and figures. I did do a good job of, sort of keeping the heart rate similar. And of course I used the same loop. It was 2 laps of the park. It's just over 2 mile. But needless to say, I've been a marathon runner for such a long time. This is not bragging. Some of the stuff that people used to post years ago was, Scully the metronome, because I maybe would run a marathon and there would only be 5 to 8 seconds difference between the quickest mile and the slowest mile. I'm good at getting into a rhythm that I just sort of run at that rhythm, and I'm really good with that effort. It's likely, if I could give you any advice, would be learn effort control. Just getting really good at effort control. So the heart rate drifted as it would, throughout a session. And so I don't need any of these shoe companies to win. Didn't need Asics to win, didn't need Nike to win, didn't need Adidas to win. So I didn't try to corrupt the data in any way. I just tried to run as fairly as I could under the situation that we had. So I think it was about as fair test as it could possibly be without obviously being in a lab, and it is what it is. So we'll go with the Alphafly 3 first, and that's what I wore straight after the on shoe, and it came in around 5:05 per mile for that sort of sort of 2-ish laps. It was 10:35 when you actually stop your watch, but it's 60 to 70 meters over a mile each lap. So 5:05 per mile, I'm guessing that's about 3:10 per kilometer. Then I stuck on the Adidas shoe and I got stuck in, and I really did think this was going to be the best shoe, but I can show you, I hope, on the screen that leg spring stiffness score, and then hopefully I can show you back to when it was sort of over 17. And I remember texting an athlete I coach saying the Adios Pro 4, game changer. I've never seen scores over 17 because normally I've seen 16, 16 and a half. When I raced Dublin Marathon, the Under Armour shoe came in at like 13 and a half, for example. And so to see 16 was like crazy. And then to see 16 and a half was like, whoa, And then when it was over 17, I sort of couldn't believe it. And that was mental. But I think what's happening is it's just declining quickly. But the Adidas shoe came in 1 second quicker than the Alphafly. But if I'm being honest, I think that's the rep I tried almost harder, But I don't think it's totally fair because the Adidas shoe wasn't brand new, but I really haven't ran that much mileage in it. You're really talking 40, 50 mile. We're not talking 100 here, 150. We're talking a couple of sessions. So then Asics, I didn't even feel like I tied the laces nicely. I literally just threw it on to kind of get the last rep done. The heart rate would have been the highest when I was wearing the Asics shoe, but it naturally, from the first 2 mile rep to the 4th, you get a 5 to 6 beat drift anyway. That happens every session, even if you're keeping it the same effort, even if the lactate's the same, all this good stuff, you always get a bit of a drift. But the effort, if anything, I felt like I backed off a little bit because I genuinely thought the Adidas shoe was going to be the best, and I almost felt like the job was done. But Asics came in at 10:23, which was 12 seconds quicker than the other shoes. So is that like 6 seconds a mile? I mean, I posted a thing on Instagram where I kind of did this that was interesting. And this was not some YouTube, that was interesting moment. This was a real, holy shit, that actually surprised me. Did not see that coming. Did not see that shoe being the best shoe. I don't really know what to say about that. It surprised me. I have a feeling that this shoe gets better over time versus the other shoe kind of declines over time quickly. I have a feeling this shoe gets better over time. And that's the kind of shoe that I want in my sort of armory. And then we'll go to the non-super shoe. And I was 8 seconds per mile slower in the non-super shoe. I can't remember the exact figure that it came in, but I'll put it up on the screen. But it worked out around 8 seconds, which is probably what I expected. I think a lot of us thought 5 to 10. And then if you take into account that this is an on-cloud monster, we did used to race in slightly nicer shoes. And the other problem we're going to find at the minute is that you're going to be much slower in non-super shoes because we've got so used to super shoes. And so we've actually had a detraining effect of how our body would handle, non-super shoes. But that's it. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you could like, subscribe, do all those lovely things. It's likely that I'm going to wear the Asics shoe. I do want to test other shoes, the Puma shoe. I would love to get a brand new pair of Adidas shoes to see if I can get them back, but they are pretty expensive, and let's see if that score comes up again. But like, subscribe, do all those lovely things. Please check out 262clothes.com and take care.